theology sums up a lot of what I've been saying by the expression, revelation takes place through salvation history. Salvation history sums up the whole process I've been speaking of. Certain events took place, historical events. Their deep significance in the mind and designs of God was made known through the inspiration of God's Spirit to certain people who were involved in those events. And they had the sense that they're caught up in a drama, a personal drama that carries them forward and makes them sharers in the great designs of God, sharers in the benefits and blessings that God gave, a sort of a sign to the whole of humanity what being true to God and knowing God and loving God can really mean in human lives. Now, there's a process. It's history. It's historical. When we speak of history, we can refer to one or the other of two things. We can mean what happened in the past, or we can mean the record that we have of what happened in the past. So both of these are involved in salvation history. The events of history took place. The whole experience I've spoken of was engendered and formed a people, gave them a new life, new dynamism. For many centuries, in the early part of this great story, their traditions were handed down in oral form. But then as the Jewish people developed a written language, they were handed down in written form. So gradually the traditions were handed on, and then finally they were gathered together in the scriptures. So the Bible that we know is the outcome of a long process of sorting out and amalgamating and re-editing the traditions of Israel. Notice, throughout this whole process, obviously the Spirit of God must be at work. The Spirit of God is there inspiring those first people who encountered God in the things he was doing. The Spirit is to gather up the traditions and preserve what's really valuable and essential to what has been learned in the relationship with God. The Spirit is there in the final editing of the Bible as we know it, which have taken sources from the traditions and put them together in the great collection that we call the Bible. Now, to understand the place of salvation history in our faith and in the Bible story, it's important to recognize the Bible is like a literature. All peoples have a literature. It's their memory. It recalls the things that have happened. It recalls the lessons they've learned. It recalls the visions they've had, the hopes they've had, the poetry they've written, the stories of their heroes, and the events that shaped their history down through the ages. All peoples have that. It's very important to them to know themselves. God's people had a literature, and this literature is presided over by the Holy Spirit to give us a final, very important, basic record of salvation history. Notice, to understand the Bible, you've got to recognize running through the whole Bible is this story theme, historical theme. Right from beginning to end, all the writers of the Bible, editors of the material of the Bible, are convinced that God is working out a great drama in their history. If they write sometimes fictional stories, it's to illustrate the values they've learned. If sometimes they write legendary stories, they build heroes up to be bigger than they really were at the time, it's to bring out what those people stood for, how important it was. If sometimes the events are told in a very symbolic way that exaggerates the numbers of people involved and the circumstances, all this is to emphasize to simple people the basic truths of this great drama and the conviction that God's plan is unfolding. So, salvation history is, we can say, the soul of the Bible. In the Old Testament, and then finally in Jesus Christ, this salvation history comes to its dramatic climax, that is, initiates the final moments of God's great plan, because God's time is not our time. His final moments may go on for millions of years, we don't know, but the final moment has come in the revelation of Jesus Christ, or we have to live in that final moment.